You. It's snowing here in the desert. Not really. I was
Maybe on
just in
Mount
Germany.
Hermon, Mount Hermon, maybe, but not you.
Yes, indeed. Well, Woody Herman usually referred to a Jewish clarinet player, but that's a different thing. We just got back from Germany, and it was snowing in Germany, so made me
Okay.
feel like Montreal a little bit
Yeah.
again. But it was only snowing in German, not in French or English. So, a couple of things to think about. Of course, um, blood cells. People like, trauma and they like fear and they like war. It makes the news. You can see the way that people advertise what's going on in Israel, and somebody says it could be, and the next person quotes him saying it will be, and the next person says it is, and then it goes out on the media, and people think, oh, the war's already happened and over. It hasn't started yet. But I wanted to take a look at two things, if I could, with us, just to get some background here. One is there are two passages specifically that talk about future war. And I don't think we're in either one of those, but just for your interest and your study and your prayer, it might be good to make a note of them. One, of course, would be Psalm 83, verses 6 through 8. And there are three different groups there. One would be Semitic, one would be Japhetic, and one would be Hamitic. So those are the three sons of Noah there, aren't there? So in Psalm 83, verse 6, it talks about a war where the Edomites, these would be people who are in the West Bank and in Jordan, are the Ishmaelites, those would be people who would be down in Saudi Arabia, Moab, which would be central Jordan, Hagrites would be Sinai. So that's one group, the kind of Semitic related group, not Jewish, not Abrahamic specifically, although you could say that not covenant Abraham, because Abraham's covenant was not made with Ishmael or Edom. So you've got that group. Then you've got Philistia, which would be Greek, Japhetic. You're talking about the Aegean. Tyre would be Lebanon, verse 7 of Psalm 83. And verse 8 is Assyria, which would be what we call the Kurdistan today, northern Iraq. So those are three different groups. You would add, of course, Ammon, which is part of Jordan today, but from Lot, not from Abraham. Uh, Jabal, which would be Lebanon. Amalek, which would be Sinai. So those are some of the groups there that we're talking about. And they're not specifically Iran right here. So that's something to see. In Ezekiel 38, however, verse 5 through 6 and verse 13, you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups listed. You've got Persia in verse 5 of Ezekiel 38. So that's Iran. Cush and Put, that would be Ethiopia and Libya. Gomer, that would be in the kind of the Stans area east of Turkey. Beit Togarma, also East Turkey and moving into the Stans. And then you've got, in verse 13, you've got Sheba, that would be the Yemenite area. Dedan, right up there as well. Tarshish could be a couple of places. Some say in the Mediterranean, some say near Spain. But there's arguments because more than one place was Tarshish. Evidently, the Phoenicians like to use that name for their colonies, their trading colonies. Just like in Canada, you had Hudson's Bay Company, something like that. So just to understand that's the Gog and Magog war, and it does mention Iran. But if we say, is there a straight connection? Well, yeah, maybe a little bit, some of them, but not fully. So, but that's just something to be aware of when you look at those two places that I'm not sure we're actually, in the thick of those passages at this point, based on the fact that there are a consortium of a conspiracy of various countries that are not yet involved in this war. So that's for prayer and for, intercession and stuff like that. I wanted to draw your attention to something that's only just a few hours new. Of course, it's talking about things which go back some time. And that is that Tucker Carlson is in Israel. And an article came out just about 2 hours ago on the Jerusalem Post, maybe 3 hours ago. Or it depends. It's been updated an hour and a half ago. And so what's going on, according to this article in the Post, is that President Trump has directly urged Tucker Carlson to ease the internal conservative fight over Israel and turn down the temperature, which sounds maybe that it's a good thing. But if you look at what is being said, what they're saying is we don't want Israel to break up the Republican coalition, the issue of Israel, into hostile camps. They say here that there's a fight about Israel, the Middle East, and the boundaries of acceptable debate within conservative politics. And they say it's gotten out of control, and it's just gotten too out of control. They repeat that. And what are they saying in the end? They're saying people like Tucker Carlson, no one likes to be told what to say and what to do. The minute the language turns to you're anti-Semitic, the conversation stops. So what they're saying here is, based on what this article says, based on the person who's supposed to have talked with President Trump, is that the issue of whether or not there are anti-Semites in the Republican Party, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Tucker Carlson, and people like Candace Owens, that's not to be the issue. The issue is, let's just sweep that aside. Let's not address it. It's just narratives, different people's narratives. What's important is the Republicans get in the election. And this has the ability to actually breed an even more user-friendly hothouse for anti-Semitism in America. Unfortunately, they say you can't call it anti-Semitism, otherwise there's no discussion. Well, maybe it's not the time for discussion. Maybe anti-Semitism is such a serious thing that it needs to be addressed. But at this point, it seems that realpolitik, or trying to make everything just quiet and nice, is the goal here. And let's just not talk about it. Let's just sweep it under the carpet. And again, we're not talking about people who are committed to a biblical perspective, people who understand the demonic nature of anti-Semitism, what flourished in Hitler's day and in Haman's day and in Pharaoh's day. This is the same type of thing. When you go to the Bible in the book of Daniel, as you know, and I mentioned before, Michael the archangel considers it so important that he actually fights against the prince of Persia and other demonic authorities like that. And so here we are facing a situation, and, God knows I'm so thankful for the fact that America is a friend of Israel at this point, mostly, and that they are, to some extent, moving forward. It's the greatest gathering of weaponry and aircraft in a long time. But it's a kind of a what's the word? Not bilateral. That's the word I'm thinking of. It's an ambivalent thing, because on one hand, there's a desire to stop the nuclear issues, and there's a desire to stop the issues of ballistic missiles, maybe not. But at the same time, there's Iranians who are dying, who are told to hold on. And evidently, for whatever reason, in terms of the fact that it takes time to get an armada together, There are going to be a lot more dying before that issue is ended.
Mm.
So, as a prayer issue, I'm just encouraging you guys not to sweep this under the carpet. This is a matter for prayer. When the issue of anti-Semitism is not allowed to be talked about publicly because it's not good for the Republicans, what we're saying is that anti-Semitism is all right to continue within the Republican Party as long as it's done more surreptitiously or quietly. This is, as I said just 3 hours ago, but the dynamics behind it are certainly going back some time, and I've even mentioned this before. So we're dealing with really an ethical and biblical question. Is the curse of Genesis 12:3 still valid upon those who curse the Jewish people, even if they have a big podcast? And is that important enough for Trump's Republicans to stand and to take a stand about? And the answer is, at this very second, no. What they're saying is, let's just sweep it under the carpet. Maybe it'll go away. We talk about it later. It's really not important. It's not a black and white issue, but don't use the term anti-Semitism. So I'm speaking to praying people. I'm speaking to people who are aware of spiritual warfare. I'm speaking to people who know the book of Daniel. Not all is good in the state of Denmark, to quote Shakespeare about Hamlet. And I think it's something to be praying about. The conversation is probably happening right now between Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel. Tucker Carlson said he was going to come to Israel only if he could speak to the prime minister, which of course raises his flag very, very high. And Bibi said, I'm having no part of it because we don't believe in where you're coming from. We don't believe there's really any dialogue going on. Mike Huckabee is an amazing fellow. Rachel and I saw him about 3 months ago speaking across the street from the Knesset at a conference, and the Lord gave him such great insight and discernment and just the right words to be able to communicate. He was talking to a room full of Orthodox Jewish people, and I was just so amazed at his ability. So it's worth praying for. But the whole issue of anti-Semitism being raised up right now, as these huge this armada, 2 or 3 armadas are streaming right now. The Lincoln is right at the place where it's facing Iran, and the submarines, the Columbia, I believe, is or Columbus or Columbia is right there, and there's other stuff coming through the Mediterranean toward Israel. So in Israel right now, everything is talking about, will war break out this weekend? Now, again, no one has access to what President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu discussed. So maybe yes, maybe no, maybe a day later, maybe a day earlier, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a week, maybe a month. Everybody wants to know the hot information, and nobody really knows it, not even me. And so it's so important to be praying, because there are 3 goals now as far as Iran is concerned. One is the government, which is the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. 2 is the ballistic missile ability, which now from Iran they can hit Europe and certainly Israel with fair accuracy. One missile exploded over our house back a few months ago, and 8 kilometers in the air, and the pieces fell within about 3 meters of our house. So it's a real issue, ballistic missiles. The third thing is, of course, the nuclear storehouses that they have, what's going to happen with that. And fourth, the ability to build a nuclear bomb. And the fifth would be the proxies, the countries who were involved in exporting terrorism, which would include Yemen, Syria at one point, Lebanon at this point, the Houthis, and Iraq, Hezbollah, Kataib Hezbollah. So there's a lot of different issues that really affect in a great way the Middle East, affect Israel, in effect, of course, America's um, geopolitical strategies, because that's the Gulf of Hormuz, the Straits of Hormuz, and that's where much of the oil in the world goes. Actually, U.S. and Venezuela together is like 60 to 70% of the world's oil right now. But Middle East is definitely an issue as well. So I just thought it might be good to be aware of that so that you can be praying with understanding of some of the strategic and military issues going on, and at the same time, the burgeoning, the blossoming of a toxic anti-Semitism, which has grown to such a point that the president has to give instructions about how to engage or how to sweep a debate under the carpet while leaving anti-Semitism in place.
Wow, wow. Okay, thank you so much. I was going to ask you about the Tucker Carlson situation. So it's not even really clear. You didn't get in that report you just read how things went with him and Huckabee, correct?
No, because I think it's going on right now.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, well,
Tucker flew in on his private jet to Ben Gurion Airport, and he's not staying in Israel. He flew from Jordan to Tel Aviv, got off, do his interview, and then leaves Israel. He doesn't want to stay in Israel that long. I guess he might discover that not everything he's saying is true.
might discover some people that don't like him there too. Well, thank you for that. I was going to ask you about that. So glad for your perspective. Just quick comment also on Hamas, on Gaza. Like, sad to hear another IDF soldier died, but that sounded like friendly fire.
Yes.
They're not disarming, Avner. Thoughts? How we pray?
Well, I think the first thing you do is you go to Google and you open up Hamas Charter and you read what Hamas Charter says. They're only doing what they believe in. Nothing is new. What's new is that some people think that they can be bought off or pressured. You're talking bin Laden type of people. It doesn't work with them. The
Yeah.
issue of setting up skyscrapers in Gaza, which is Jewish land, according to Joshua 15, verse 47, is foolish. And it brings a curse based on Genesis 12, God's promise that the land belongs to the Jews. So Hamas is still there. They still, Israel's managed only to deal with 150 of the 500 tunnels that are there. They have somewhere between 40 and 60,000 rifles, and they still have other armaments around. And so, what's life for if you can't kill Jews? That's Hamas's perspective. And so the concept of anything else is just not playing realistically. But that's where we are. That's where we are.
And before we are shifting into prayer, this is another clip. Again, Mark sent this to me, but have a look at this in Iran, because as Avner was talking about Iran,
right here, where there's a
so
crowd right here, and there will be a vehicle coming from this direction with a weapon aimed towards the crowd and starting to fire. The people saying they don't want foreign intervention.
So there they are, just standing there, actually. But that's still going on, by the way, just in case we think it's not. By the way, I discovered that, didn't know this, that Trump had actually smuggled in, I'm not sure if Avner, 1,500 different Starlink, like Elon Musk, internet, connections. So that was clever.
Yeah, and that helps. The issue within Shiite Islam and jihadi Islam as a whole is that if you're going to come against jihadi forces, you are the enemy. Doesn't matter if you're Iranian or if you're Arab or if you're Sunni or if you're Shiite. And so this concept of that, killing your own people, it's not a problem in the Middle East, unfortunately. And it's kind of like in Russia, where Stalin killed the best of his generals and sent the most intelligent people either to be shot in Lubyanka or to go to Siberia. It's a self-destructive aspect of the teaching. It's unfortunate.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, let's just pray for Avner. And you can check in the chat there with Sarah. We talked about that yesterday too, the group that you have going on today, starting at noon Central Time. Lord bless Avner. Thank you for this man. Wow, such a